Aristotle's his proposal, his idea for what makes for a happy life, a flourishing life, is that you're exercising your rational capacities in an excellent way, not just in an average or poor way, but you're exercising your rational capacities in an excellent way over a long period of your life. And I really think that there's something to that. And I know my own experience is kind of in my own life and in the lives of those I've seen around me. I think that is fundamentally correct. that people who are the most flourishing are leading rational lives where they're using their rational mind to deeply explore and understand the world around them, and to interact in that world in a sustainable and enjoyable way.
Is there anything about our kind of current time, whether it be the advent of social media and kind of short clickbait, 30-second clips that capture people's attentions and get them addicted, whether it be the 24-hour news cycle, whether it be just kind of being bombarded with information and notifications on phones, that you think makes that, meaning Aristotle's theory of happiness, more difficult to obtain in our modern society?
Yeah, I think that's true. I do think that's true. I think there are more ways to divert your time and energy that there have been before. I mean, I just imagine what it was like to live in a rural Greek community in the ancient world, where just there wouldn't be a lot of change maybe from day to day. And just think how different it is now that you can sit, in a chair and play a game for 5 minutes, then watch news clips, then go to a TikTok feed, then check up on your friends on social media, just in time to get another news flash, just in time to check the weather because your phone now is warning you there's a tornado. Like, it's just, there is a lot of opportunity for a kind of constant diversion. I think that is true. Now, on the other hand, though, I am somewhat optimistic about this. I think we're living in a time where these technologies are being created for really the first time. And there's kind of a wild west of social media and all these different technological opportunities. But notice that at the very same time that the number of diversions has popped up, we're also creating more and more opportunities for deep engagement. Like take this podcast series that you've set up, right? And that other people have set up. I think a lot of people enjoy a long form discussion. They don't want just a sound bite. They don't want to just watch something, a news clip that lasts for 3 minutes. They want to hear people talk to one another and explore ideas together. And so, I mean, yes, it's true. We have all these abilities to distract ourselves, but we're also increasing the different ways in which we can really be happy in an Aristotelian sense. And I am optimistic that at the end of the day, we are still rational animals, and that there is something that human beings will seek and develop over time. So it's just one more thing for us to navigate as a species. I don't think it's the end of us or anything like that, or the end of our happiness.
Well, I'm currently in journalism school, and so one of the things that keeps on coming up is kind of the rise and the advent of social media journalism and independent journalism and all these things. And a big discussion people are having is whether or not it needs to be regulated and monitored to prevent, misinformation, as they say, from spreading. And I read in an interview with Zan Bog entitled "Navigating Rough Seas" that you said that it's equally important to do that for quote unquote elite media or mainstream media if we want to prevent more partisan political violence. I'm wondering if you could just elaborate on that point a bit, because I found it very interesting.
Yeah, well, if Aristotle's correct, and all societies do feature sort of an elite group of those who are resource rich on the one hand, and then people who are resource poorer at the bottom. If that's just the setup you're going to be dealing with in society, and then maybe a middle class kind of navigating between the two. You just, if you're going to have tools where one group is able to control the mistakes of the other group, right? You've got to make sure that that other group has tools at its disposal to take care of the mistakes of the first group. You can't set up a situation where people who are in elite positions get to catch all the mistakes of everyone else, but they themselves are never held accountable for their own mistakes. Everyone in society, all the different groups, both the elite and the poorer, have to be held accountable. And some of the proposals I've heard for controlling misinformation or disinformation or malinformation or whatever formulation you want, it just presupposes that, well, of course, the people in the elite class will be the ones policing this and deciding what is disinformation or not, or malinformation or not. And I'm okay with people in elite positions doing that in some way, but I'm not comfortable with that unless we also give tools to the vast majority of people who aren't as rich in social capital, whereby they can control the misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation coming from the elite classes too. So it has to be a two-way street. And I think any attempt to just make it a one-way street is just a huge problem. And I think it would feed into those spectacles that I was talking about earlier of contempt, superiority, and fear that are long-term kind of causes of making people feel that the regime they're living under is fundamentally unjust. And so anyway, that was what I was trying to get at in that interview.
That makes
it's not that I think that all information is equally good and that there should be no policing of any information. I'm not sure that makes sense. But I just picking one elite group out as the single group that gets to control that to me is a recipe for disaster.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and I think a lot of people are gonna find be very sympathetic to that point. You also said that you think we need stricter libel laws in the U.S. I know the U.S. has some of the most lax libel laws in the world, and you said because to make it easier to hold someone accountable who publicly smears you. Again, could you just elaborate on why you think that's the case? And are you at all worried that such a policy would lead to stricter free speech laws? And if so, is that even a bad thing?
Yeah, look, I believe deeply in freedom of speech. I'm a strong believer in the First Amendment. Now, and so yes, I am worried by my own proposal. I think there are dangers, but I also believe that those are dangers that can be navigated and dealt with, because I think it's just as dangerous to let human beings who are supposed to be living together in a political community to defame one another, to try to dishonor one another, and to try to deliberately make each other's lives miserable on the basis of lies. That kind of thing tears us apart, and I think it makes it impossible to have legitimate competitions for political power for good jobs. Like you want competition, but if people are able to libel one another, it makes that kind of competition less likely. Also, you need a society in which people can have good faith disagreements and debates. But when you're able to defame other people, again, that's a recipe for making sure that you're not going to end up having good and healthy and productive debates. So I am worried that libel laws could be used in a way that would impinge on our free speech rights. I'm not naive about that. And that is something I would worry about and that we would need to be vigilant about. But on the other hand, I just think we've now almost normalized just brutally anti-social behavior that just transforms people into partisans and makes people think of themselves as enemies of one another in a way that just makes any kind of social cohesion impossible. And I think that's a mistake. I don't think that people can feel like they're living productive, healthy, flourishing lives in an environment where someone can just come along and defame you without any consequences.